So let's start with Donald Trump, who has been indicted this week after days and weeks of anticipation. And it's fair to say it was something of a damp squib. I'm joined now by Megyn Kelly, the broadcaster and journalist and former lawyer, to talk about it. Megyn, I've spoken to a few sort of get Trump type people who've been determined to get Trump for 7 or 8 years now. And they thought that in these 34 counts against Donald Trump, there might be something, there might be some sort of hidden thing that would actually prove to be quite damning. But I've read the indictment, and I think it's fair to say that it's comically thin. With your legal brain on, would you agree?
I completely agree with you. And I think they're kidding themselves. I think they should be angry at Alvin Bragg, because there may be a decent case against Trump, at least more decent than this one, in the special prosecutor Jack Smith, who's looking into whether he openly defied a subpoena that was served upon him in Mar-a-Lago and had his lawyer say he turned over everything when he hadn't. That one is at least interesting. It is colorable. This one's a joke. It makes a joke out of the justice system. It's absurd to violate nearly 250 years of precedent in not going after former presidents criminally. With this, are you kidding me? It's an embarrassment. And it's obviously an attempt to fulfill a campaign promise by Alvin Bragg, who not once, not twice, but repeatedly, over a dozen times, touted his record of getting Trump, of having been part of at least 100 lawsuits against the Trump organization and the Trump family and Donald Trump himself, and promising he was just the man to do it if they would put him in office. By the way, the people who were persuaded by that are Trump's jurors. That's his jury pool and his potential jury, which is one of the many reasons why, at a minimum, this case should be moved out of the borough of Manhattan, which went 87% for Joe Biden. But it is thin gruel in that indictment.
Well, so there'll probably be a motion to dismiss from Trump's lawyers. I think the anticipation is that that won't succeed. Do you think a motion to move the case out of New York would succeed?
I don't think the motion to change venue will be successful, but I actually don't feel as pessimistic about the motion to dismiss as you do. It would take a steel spine by the judge, because you get elected to the position he's in. The judges at the trial court level in New York get elected, and he does not want to disappoint the electorate by saying, I threw out the case against Donald Trump. So it would take a steely spine, but eventually it could go up in appeal. And I do think an appellate court is very likely to say this thing ought to go. Not the immediate appellate court, because they're elected as well, but the level above that. Because there's no there. If you look at it just in a nutshell, what he's done is charge a misdemeanor crime, which is falsification of business records. And the only way you elevate that to a felony, which he must do because the statute of limitations has run on those misdemeanors, it was only 2 years, we're 5 years in. He's tried to elevate them to felonies so we can get the 5-year statute of limitations by saying the reason you did shenanigans on your bookkeeping was to cover up an underlying crime. Now, if that's true, he does get the longer statute of limitations. But we all waited to say, what's the underlying crime? Tell us. We're open-minded. Let's see. What did he do? It's Trump. He did something. We don't know. Yesterday, Alvin Bragg tried to pin the tail on the felony. Like, we have no idea. I don't have to tell you, he actually said. But then went on to say, maybe it's federal election law. Maybe it's state election law. Maybe it's state tax law. Well, let me tell you something, Freddie. It is none of those things, because there is no federal election law violation here. I just got done interviewing the former head of the Federal Election Commission under Bill Clinton. Okay. And this person said it's very clear, under the best argument for Alvin Bragg, that this was not a federal election law violation, even if everything Alvin Bragg alleges is true, even if Donald Trump, David Pecker of the National Enquirer, and Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer, sat down and said, we have 3 potential stories coming out about you. How can we get rid of them? Let's capture and kill them. Here's a slush fund to pay off these people. Even if true, not an election contribution. That would have to be reported and so on. It's a personal expense. It was paid from Donald Trump's personal account, and it just doesn't qualify. So there's no underlying crime. Look at the state law. The state law doesn't have an independent area that we can explore. The state law just says, if you conspired to cover up unlawful activity, you violated New York state election law. That now we're back to the federal law. The only alleged unlawful activity is under the federal election law. Well, I just covered that for you. And the New York state tax law, there was no tax violation. What they're saying is, you paid off the women, then you doubled the number you paid, and you added 60 grand and you paid that to Michael Cohen and called it legal expenses. Why did you double the payment? Because you wanted Michael Cohen to not have to pay taxes on the fees that he used to reimburse Stormy Daniels and the others and take the tax hit himself. So the Trump organization took the hit, but New York State didn't take a tax hit. Nobody didn't get paid their taxes. In fact, New York State profited off of this money scheme that they came up with. There's no damage and there's no fraud under the tax law. And even if there were, we're back to misdemeanor territory. So there is no underlying felony or crime. If we're going to go down this line, even further and say, okay, I'm wrong about all of that. Everything I just said is untrue. And Alvin Bragg's won every motion. They still have to prove that Trump knew about it and directed it. And there's a lot of evidence that he didn't, that Michael Cohen made this up because he absolutely hates Donald Trump, and all these meetings he had with David Pecker and so on to thank him and which didn't have anything to do with Stormy Daniels, but had to do with the fawning coverage the National Enquirer was doing on Donald Trump from the get-go.
Well, and New York State has had to pay a lot in police fees and closing down roads and so on in anticipation of an upsurge of Trumpist violence, which didn't materialize. It does seem like a legal nonsense, and obviously a nonsense as far as justice is concerned. Should we talk about the politics of it, though? Because Trump has obviously had a major boost in the polls as a result of this farce. Ron DeSantis is sort of a diminished figure, would you not say, or slightly knocked out the picture now. And a lot of people speculate that that's exactly what the Democrats want. And maybe this is what it's all about. It's an attempt to make Donald Trump the nominee because the Democrats think, rightly or wrongly, that they can beat him.
Mm-hmm. Careful what you wish for. They tried that once before and he won in 2016. I mean, we've seen this movie before. Earned media coverage where the media goes wall to wall Trump and no one else can get any oxygen. The candidate himself, you think he's going to be under attack and seen as disgusting and somebody nobody would want anything to do with, where in fact the American people see him as persecuted and the victim of an overreaching left and are impressed by his fortitude and his strength and his unwillingness to back down. Seeing his competitors have to scramble in their messaging as Trump takes up all the oxygen and dominates with yet another scandal. The messaging that doesn't alienate his core base and the people who love him, but distinguishes you as a different kind of candidate. No one's been able to do it at all in 16 and 20 or today. And in 16, all these same three things were happening. And we heard, this is great. There's no chance he can win with all of this going on. And we all know what happened. Well, it's happening again. And people don't learn. They don't learn. Trump right now is seen as invincible. They see him defiant down there at Mar-a-Lago saying, I fight for you. This is about you. It's not about me, with the American flags behind him, looking strong, looking vibrant, 76 years old, but still looking very energetic. And they say, he's the only one who can fight these zealots. They wanted to pack the Supreme Court. They wanted to add extra states so they could get rid of the filibuster in the Senate. They want open borders. They want all these. They tried to absolutely demolish Brett Kavanaugh when he was nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court with totally scurrilous allegations. You need an extraordinary leader to take on these fights. And they don't see anybody filling that bill besides Donald Trump.
I can see, you're absolutely right. Clearly that his campaign has been, or his chances of winning the presidency have been rejuvenated by this. But is there not a sort of longer term risk that there are going to be more cases? We'll have the case in Georgia about the find me 12,000 ballots and so on. We'll have more about January 6th. And could Trump fatigue, which has sort of subsided a little bit in the last few days, could that come back, do you think, as the sort of endless allegation after allegation is poured out against him and people just sort of tune off and feel fed up with it?
I'm not feeling that on this. I mean, it's potentially true, yes. But the problem is not one of these cases is sexy. It's not something that people can easily connect with. He had documents at Mar-a-Lago that he is a president. I mean, most of us feel like a former president can take documents from the White House. And we're already told he can declassify documents as the president. He says he did that with these. All right, they're going to argue about it. Well, what did he really do wrong? Because we know Joe Biden did it too. We know Mike Pence did it too. probably Barack Obama and others as well. What do you do? He got an order to produce them, and he said he'd produced everything when he hadn't. I mean, it's really hard to have your heart go aflutter at that case. It really is. And then the case in Georgia, find me the votes. Well, if you look at the larger conversation, it's a lot more nuanced than that. He felt like he had the votes and they were not counting them. And he was basically saying, go count them for him. Like, I'm telling you, this is the number I need. And they're there. That's what he's going to argue. Again, can you really get emotionally invested in this one passing phrase in this much longer conversation? I just don't think people are going to connect with those cases in any meaningful way. And so they can do 24/7 on this on CNN if they want. And people who already hate Trump will watch it and feel gratified. But I think the Republican base, which is what he needs to get by first, will be bored with it. Might see that he's got baggage, but will also see this fighter who they need to fight these extreme people who can't even say what a woman is. You need somebody who's strong, who knows how to fight battles and craziness. And I really think that it will be more of a net benefit to Trump than a net downside.
You mentioned Joe Biden. It seems to me that he's so far trying to act as though he's above it. His press secretary has sort of shooed away questions about it as much as she can. Do the Americans buy that, or do they see him as part of the problem that the Democrats are causing?
I think he's checked out in many ways, and people understand that. He's obviously partisan, but it's yet another missed opportunity for Joe Biden. This was a very dark day for America yesterday, whether you love Trump or hate Trump. We've crossed, it's a before and after moment for our country. There's a reason this has never happened in nearly 250 years. And this no-name prosecutor out of New York who's trying to become a star is the one who decides he's going to change all that. He will rue the day, and so will this country. If you don't think the Republicans are vindictive enough to turn the tables, you haven't been paying attention. They will. In the same way, they got rid of the filibuster on lower court judges in the Senate, and Mitch McConnell stood up and said, you will rue the day because you Democrats will not only always hold control of this chamber. And when the Republicans got in control, they got rid of the filibuster too. Only this time it was Supreme Court nominees. And guess what happened? They got 3 Supreme Court seats under Donald Trump. Thanks to that, the turnabout. If you don't think the Republicans are going to turn this around and use it against Democrats, you're crazy. And if Donald Trump gets in there, you don't think he's going to start going after people like Hillary Clinton with his DOJ that's now under his control? It's a dark day. So my point is, Joe Biden had a real moment as the commander-in-chief, as the leader of the nation, to come out and say, this is a dark day for America. The legal process will play out as it should, and I trust in the legal process. However, it is not lost on me that this is a first in the American electorate's history. And my heart goes out to those people who are hurting over it. And I want to reassure you that the backbone of this country is strong. And that while we may have anomalies, or we may have unusual events happen, we're still strong. We still at our core love each other. We still can get past red and blue. He didn't do it. He smirked, he smiled, and he declined comment. It was a missed opportunity, and he looked foolish.
He's actually coming to Ireland next week. He loves to play off his Irish heritage. You have Irish heritage, am I right in saying?
I do. My father was 100% Irish.
Do you find Biden's Irish stick a bit bogus?
Well, he's Irish and he's Black and he's Jewish and he's Puerto Rican. I mean, he's claimed every heritage under the sun.
Apart from English, he never claims that, even though it's true.
Right. Yeah. So I find it a stretch. Here in America, we've had this run of people pretending they're Native Americans when they're not, and they've become known as pretendians. That's what he's going to claim next. So I don't know. Hold your breath. I'm not sure about the Irish thing. We'll find out, I'm sure.
And of course, talking about Republicans, there's plenty of stuff on the Biden family that they could go after, and they probably will.
I feel like this guarantees it. I mean, all you need is a state prosecutor. I mean, the feds aren't going to do it because Biden controls them. Merrick Garland is his guy at the DOJ, and no federal prosecutor would do it without his okay. But the state prosecutors, I mean, there are Republican state prosecutors all over the country, including in states in which Hunter Biden has had illegal weapons, submitted applications for those weapons, which appear to have had lies on them, had prostitutes, had drugs on camera, all documented by the so-called laptop from hell. And that's not even to touch on his nefarious business dealings and what's gone on with the financial alleged crimes there. So the House is investigating some of that right now. And we'll see. He could definitely be target number one. The Clintons, the Clinton Foundation, which has got all sorts of red flags all over it when it comes to their taxes and so on, could become the target of an investigation down in Arkansas. There could be a long list. And while it would be further sadness for our country and what we used to stand for, it would be totally fair.
Megyn, it is indeed a sad day for America, but it's Easter weekend coming up, so there's always hope. I hope you have a very happy Easter.
Thank you very much. You too. I'm looking forward to it.